or send me a message or so. Um, so first of all, thanks for joining. It's kind of a challenge for me to teach in English, so you will forgive my mistakes also in Hebrew, also in English. I think I told you, this is the first time I teach in English in the Kehilat Moriah. I've done this a couple of times in my life. So we have, our topic today is when or how many times the Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah happened in the Bible. So a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated our last festival, which was Shavuot. So what is the Jewish date or the Hebrew date for Shavuot? Anyone knows? Sivan 6. Okay, this is the 6th of Sivan. Even though we have no idea, and it's really hard to understand what actually happened from a point of view from the dates, from the exact days of the Matan Torah. And to make things more complicated, that's what usually we do as Jews. We have a couple of times that Moses goes up to Mount Sinai, and he receives again the luchot. How to say the luchot? The tablets. Right? So if he will do that nowadays, you will get something like this. This is the new version of the tablets. So he actually breaks the tablets the first time, then he goes up, then he writes for a second time. So it takes a while to understand, and it's all of this is also, of course, related with the forgiveness of God, of Elohim, and it's related, of course, to Yom Kippur. So in some way or another, Jewish tradition managed to create, and I think it's fascinating, to create new traditions from nowhere, actually, from a little piece of information that we have in the Torah, that we have in the biblical text. We managed, actually, Chazal, the sages managed to create festivals and so on. For instance, we have this last day of Sukkot. This is a good example. We have the last day of Sukkot, which is called Shmini Atzeret. But no one celebrates, actually, Shmini Atzeret. Maybe in the diaspora that we have 2 days, but the festival is well known as Simchat Torah, which is a rabbinic tradition. It doesn't appear in the Torah. It's only in the Talmud and the Mishnah and so on. So this is another good example. Questions or Mashu until now?
David has a theory about why these festivals come out of nowhere, don't you, David? Is he there, David?
Yes. Sorry.
What's your theory about how these festivals, Pesach, Sukkot, come out of nowhere?
Well, I think that a group of businessmen got together and said, come on, guys, we need a story which is going to cause the people to go out and spend money.
That's right. If so, we need to celebrate Christmas, which is a very expensive festival that we don't celebrate. Anyway, we have Hanukkah, so it's not 1 day, it's 8 days, so it's 8 times more gifts and matanot. So I will post here, you will see it in a minute, a source sheet. Anyway, Sharon, if you can also say where in Etz Chaim we're looking.
It's on page 380.
380.
380.
380. So the first time, the first thing that we need to do is the Jewish calendar, as you might know, have different structures. And in our days, we celebrate actually Rosh Hashanah at the beginning of the year at the first day of Tishrei. But this is a later tradition. Actually, the first day of the year was the first of the month of Nisan. Is anyone willing to read, even from Etz Chaim or here from this from what you see here? In English, of course.
Well, I can start it off in English. I can
Okay,
start it
great,
off.
great.
Chapter 12.
Yes.
The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of the months. It shall be the first of the months of the year for you. Speak to the whole community of Israel and say that on the 10th of this month, each of them shall take a lamb to a family, a lamb to a household. But if the household is too small for a lamb, let him share one per person."
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're on verse 6, pasuk vav.
You shall keep watch over it until the 14th day of this month, and all the assembled congregation of the Israelites shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall
So-
take some of
What?
Lamshich.
No. It's fine.
Yeah.
So we have here the first. I put this here in order to understand that all the descriptions of different dates and days and meaningful periods of time in the Torah, they are all related, and it's all based on the first of Nisan, which was considered to be the first day of the year. In some cases, even for the kings, as is written in the Mishnah, it was the first year, the first day of the year. So if people were actually were not choosing a new king, but if they were celebrating the beginning of a new era of a new king, they will start counting the years at the first of Nisan. And so the festivals that we have in the Torah. So we actually know that the first day of Nisan it's a type of Rosh Hashanah, and also as it's written here, this month, you shall keep watch over it until the 14th day of this month. Which festival we celebrate then?
That's Pesach.
Pesach, right? Passover. We celebrate Passover. So this is the first. This is gonna help us to understand the developing of this tradition. So a couple of chapters afterwards, after they went out from Egypt, after they crossed the Red Sea, and after they sing the Shirat Hayam, etc., and after a very short episode with Yitro, we see this the previous lines and verses before the giving of the Ten Commandments, which I must say, it's kind of a weird thing. We will see afterwards, because if we actually say that was the day on which the Torah was given, we will see afterwards in one of our interpretations from Rashi that Moses was up there a couple of days. Anyone wants to read from here, from Exodus 19?
Didn't of the Bible?
What?
The Bible shouldn't start with Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim, but it should start with this.
Right. So that what you're saying, Shlomi, is right. According to Rashi's interpretation, Rashi was a famous and a prominent rabbi at the Middle Ages from France. He's one of the great I would say, one of his best, he actually wrote a commentary on the Torah and the entire Tanakh almost, and also almost every part of the Talmud. So he says at the beginning of Sefer Bereshit that the Torah shouldn't have started with the creation of the world. It doesn't make any sense. If the Torah was given to the people of Israel, it should have started at Exodus 12, which is the beginning of the Jewish people as a people coming out from Egypt. But in order to clarify to everyone that God is the only God and he created the heaven and the earth. That's why we started with Bereshit. But the Rashi that we will see, he explains all the process of going up and going down from Mount Sinai.
Rav David, does that mean then we should consider that the first of Nisan is actually the beginning of the year in terms of our understanding of the Hebrew calendar?
Yes.
And not Rosh Hashanah.
So what happened? There are 4 new years in Jewish calendar. The first of Nisan, which was the new year for the kings, and also the new year for the for taxes. Your tax declaration should be given to the Pakid in Mas Achnasa at the first of Nisan, for instance. Then we have the first of Elul, which is also the new year for another kind of taxes. It's not taxes, it's by Maaser, which is how we translate Maaser?
Tithe.
Yeah,
Is that tithe?
tithe, right. From animals. Then we have the first of Tishrei, which is the Rosh Hashanah for the Shanim. This is the new year for the years. We start counting years from Rosh Hashanah, but it's like the 1st of September and the 1st of January. You understand the relationship between them? So we start starting, and we start our impositive year in September or the 1st of January, and then we have all the important dates, and of course the 15th of Shvat to Bishvat, the new year for the trees. So yes, actually the fact that we today celebrate Rosh Hashanah, it's only because we remark the years. And it's the anniversary, actually Rosh Hashanah, the first of Tishrei, it's the anniversary not from the creation of the world, but the creation of Adam, of Adam and Eve. So actually the anniversary of the beginning of the world is 5 days before, the 25th of Elul. What?
So that's the creation, the 1st of Elul?
No, 1st of Elul is for the tithe of animals.
Of the animals. And of course, God created the animals in the Bereshit, so go figure.
Could be. It's actually when you had to give part of your animals as the maaser. It happened. It should be a couple of years after. It's not at the first year of the animal, but at the 3rd year. So when you start counting these years at the 1st of Elul, so it's very complicated. There's a long discussion in the Talmud how to fix. All our calendar is a very big mathematical calculation. I don't really understand it, and it's pretty related.
You have to be a mathematician.
Yeah. Yep. Or a very good believer in God. So we are reading from Exodus 19. Anyone?
I said I'd read. I'll read.
Okay, great.
On the 3rd new moon, after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on that very day they entered the wilderness of Sinai. Having journeyed from Rephidim, they entered the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. Israel encamped there in front of the mountain, and Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, "Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob and declare to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. And he said to the people, be ready for the 3rd day. Do not go near a woman. On the 3rd day, as morning dawned, there was thunder and lightning, and a dense cloud upon the mountain. Who were in the camp trembled.
That's right. So we know that at the third new moon, I'm pretty sure that you have looked this, you have seen this probably before, that the Chodesh, the Hebrew month, is not only the month, but the new moon. Right. So today is 19 of Sivan. We have a couple of weeks till the next new month, the next new moon. And what is the third new moon or the third month after Nisan? Sivan. Okay, so we have Sivan, that's right. So we have Nisan, then we have Iyar, which we celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut, and then we have Sivan. But here we don't have we don't see yet the 6th of Sivan. We still don't see the Shavuot issue, the giving of the Torah. So we can start trying to draw a kind of an idea that we have those 3 days that the people of Israel should prepare themselves, and the men should keep distance from their women for 3 days, and it's a kind of a physical and spiritual preparation for the giving of the Torah. And there's a couple of lines afterwards. I didn't brought this here because it was too long, but we have the 10 Commandments. So the first time that Moses goes up to Mount Sinai, when was it? When he went up for the first time? When he goes up to Har Sinai?
In the beginning of Sivan, it looks like.
At the beginning of Sivan, right? And it's very hard to establish exactly at which day of Sivan, because we don't have it here. We have that and on the third month. It could be at the middle of the month, at the end, at the beginning of the month. We don't know exactly. We can suppose that maybe since it's written B'chodesh HaShlishi, so at the third month, that after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, we know that people of Israel went out not at the beginning of Nisan, but in the middle of Nisan. So maybe we're celebrating today Shavuot a couple of days before Matan Torah. Anyway, this is the first time that Moshe goes up. You see, my internet is not working. Oh, okay. And the first time he goes up, we know that he was how many days?
3?
How many days? How many?
It says on the third day.
The third day. Okay, the third day, Moses apparently goes to Mount Sinai, speaking with God, and then he started doing something. Apparently, from what we will see afterwards, he was there 40 days. And it's a very famous number. We have 40 many times in the Bible. You can give a lot of examples. For instance, what the first time was 40 days?
Flood.
What?
The flood.
Right, with Noah. With Noah, then we have the story of Moses.
Blood.
Then, of course, we have many. So, it apparently, we can say that was literally 40 days, or we can say it was a period of time, a long period of time. So we can understand that every time that 40 days are mentioned in the Bible, it comes together with a new perspective, with a new world, with new ideas. After the 40 days of the story of Noah, we have a brand new world starting again, all mankind, etc. After the first time Moshe goes up to Mount Sinai and he comes back, we will see it in a minute, again, God almost destroyed everything, but I don't want to spoil the end. So we are in Exodus chapter 24, and this is, sorry, I just, okay, so we have here another text, also from Exodus, and we will try to compare it with the previous story. Someone wants to read?
Shall I read now?
What?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, shall I read?
Yes,
Shall I
please.
read?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there, and I will give you the stone tablets with the teachings and commandments which I have inscribed to instruct them." So Moses and his attendant Joshua rose, and Moses ascended the mountain of God until he returned. You have Aaron and Hur with you. Let anyone who has a legal matter approach them. When Moses had ascended the mountain, the cloud covered the mountain. The presence of the Lord abode on Mount Sinai, and the cloud hid it for 6 days. On the seventh day, he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud. Now the presence of the Lord
appeared, right?
Go on. Now the presence of the Lord appeared in the sight of the Israelites as a consuming fire on the top of the mountain. Moses went inside the cloud and ascended the mountain, and Moses remained on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights.
So we finally see that Moses goes up 40 days and 40 nights. This is the first time that Moshe goes to Mount Sinai, and we have a problem here. Why is it problematic? Any ideas? Why it should maybe it? Can you hear me? Yes.
Talking about theological issues, or are we talking about plot issues?
I will be happy to hear both questions.
Okay. So if Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, or even for 7 days, does that mean he celebrated Shabbat outside of Tchum Yeshuv?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's right. That's the theological question. Okay, great. And the other problem?
Well, I think one of the problems was that the people waiting below didn't believe he'd come back.
Okay, that's we will see in a minute. So it's a long period of time, and the people doesn't know how to count every day. And another problem that between Exodus 19 and Exodus 24, we have a couple of things that happen in between, and we are not exactly. We don't know exactly that we are talking about the same date. So when on the previous text in chapter 19, we see that they're getting ready for Matan Torah, and they started preparing everything 3 days before, and God actually, the Lord says to Moshe, "Thus should you say to the house of Jacob and declare to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to Egyptians, etc." Then verse 15, and he said to the people, be ready for the third day. And they're getting ready, but we don't have yet the exact date. And this is one of the problems about counting the days. And we will see afterwards how the Midrash and other texts try to order everything in order to give sense to the text, and it fits perfectly as it should work. But anyway, we have, as you're probably heard before, we have a very famous principle that was, I don't know if created, but that was said by some sages at the Talmud, that en mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah. There's no before and after in terms of the Torah, which is very. Have you heard that before? Right? I'm not saying something new, which is very problematic. It more or less, it says, we have no idea how to deal with it. Don't screw it. Okay, so don't ask hard questions. And it's a very well-known way to stop a discussion that they don't have answer for the question. It's also this phrase is also used by many rabbis interpreting the verses of the Torah, of course by Rashi. And other thing that we must know, and I don't know, probably you have also talked about this with Ora, that as like happens with every ancient text, sometimes they go through a kind of an addition. So probably people were putting text in different parts, and that's why we have a very big mess about the exact dates and times, etc. So I'm not saying anything new, I think. So if you have any question, I would love to answer. But one of the problems that we also see here is the counting of the 7 days, and then at the 7th day, God says to Moshe, "Come here, and you will be." And Moses went inside the cloud 40 days and 40 nights. I'm sorry, what's going? Okay, questions till here before we? Anything?
I don't understand this business about.
Sharon and then Adina. Sharon?
Was he up on the mountain, halfway up the mountain? He went back down to the people during the 6 days. When the cloud was on the mountain, where was Moshe?
When the cloud was on the mountain, Moshe was inside the cloud.
He was, but it says the presence of the Lord abode on Mount Sinai, and the cloud hid it for 6 days. On the 7th day, he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud. So Moses was not in the cloud, but he also was not with the people. Where was he?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have an answer. Maybe he was probably getting ready for going up to Mount Sinai. That's one of that's a possible answer. I will say another option afterwards. Sharon, you were about to...
No, I withdraw my question. It's okay.
Okay. So another option is to say that it's start feeding the idea that Shavuot, the Chag Matan Torah, it is actually Vav of Sivan, the 6th day of Sivan, since we already heard that it was at the 3rd month of after the Israelites went out from Egypt, and then we have this 6 days since the Shekhinah was inside, the divine presence was inside the cloud, and then Moses goes in. And it means that actually we should celebrate Shavuot on the 7th day of Sivan and not the 6th. And it's a problem. It's a problem. Any other ideas? Where was Moses in between?
I understood that says he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud. That either it means that Moses was in the middle, in the middle of the cloud, or Elohim was in the middle of the cloud from.
Okay.
David?
Yes.
How old was Moshe at this point?
How old he was?
How old was he?
I don't know.
Approximately in his 80s.
I think so. I'll try to.
Okay, because if he died at 120 and they wandered in the desert for 40 years, so that would make him approximately 80, right?
Right.
So I would guess that Moshe was climbing the mountain. You know, an 80-year-old is not in such great physical.
You're totally right.
Right?
That's a very
So-
literal interpretation.
Well, that's who I am, malasot.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine, and I will try
Yeah.
to answer to your question. Even according to the, even according of about what you're saying, there's also a well-known tradition that says that Mount Sinai wasn't the highest mountain in the desert, but it was a very low mountain, so probably it wasn't that hard to do it. Some people say that also, I talked about this in the Tikkun, that God took the mountain upon the Jewish people, and he said, if you don't accept my Torah, I will just I will let the mountain to fall up to you, and this will be your grave. So if God can take the mountain, God could also have taken Moses. That's a very, very interesting topic about the ages of people in the Bible. We have also the story of Methuselah, etc. But we know that the 120 years, it seems to be the maximum that someone could live, or even a very good age to left at least the physical world. Just a minute. Someone. I'm sorry.
There were no trails up the mountain, even if it was not a difficult mountain to climb.
Maybe Moses was actually very, very tired, and it was very
Had a
hard.
rest in the cloud.
Yeah.
Can I go back to what you said before? Because
Yes.
actually everybody's nodding, and I don't know this business where you said there is no beginning and no end of the Torah, and that's how scholars get around having to give an exact answer for questions.
Okay. Yeah.
I always understood that the whole point of going to a yeshiva and the arguments of pasuk and everything like that was in order to come to some sort of discussion. And you're now saying that this is a way to avoid a full discussion when it's difficult? Is this what the rabbanim do? Not, I hasten to add, I'm sure the conservative movement doesn't.
Okay. No, I will explain the difference. So this is the En Mukdam U'Meuchar BaTorah. This principle was established in the times of the Talmud, many years ago. So, sorry again. So it was used by rabbis in Middle Ages and almost in every classic Torah commentary. When they don't know actually how to deal with the question, they will put this principle, En Mukdam U'Meuchar BaTorah, or this text doesn't belong here, it should be in somewhere else. So this was the main, not the only, but the main way of see this kind of problems with dates and exact places, etc. Until we started looking at and reading the text in a more critical way. So biblical criticism that started 200 years ago, they started understanding that the Bible was composed by different sources, and as a text that wasn't edited or written by just one person, but by a group of people, but an entire society, it's obvious that we will find some contradictions between one text and another. So this kind of view, of course, you won't see it in a yeshiva, although there are some classical parshanim, commentators on the Torah, that even in Middle Ages they gave us some clues to understand that we have here a kind of contradiction that is more than En Mukdam U'Meuchar BaTorah, but it's related to the sources from that compose the Bible. Some of them, for instance, are Ibn Ezra, and there are others. of course. But of course, in yeshivot, in our world, in today, they don't study in a critical way. They just accept everything as it's written. They don't even try to ask pretty hard questions. But it's a totally different view of the world. It's very hard from them. Actually, when many, and I've heard this by people that I studied with them, many of them, when they start studying at university and they're they start studying science or biblical criticism, there are some religious people that they want to do bachelor's degree in Mikra, in Bible. And when they start learning new kind of a new way of reading the biblical text, they actually get very disappointed, and they start, of course, getting away from Judaism in some way or another, or they just live in peace with it and they say, okay, it's fine, I understand it, it doesn't affect my personal view. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it gives me some, and you've made it clearer than I understood it before. Thank
so
you.
today we live in a world that we actually need to prove everything. So if the Torah says ABC, I need to prove that it actually happened or it didn't. But just I will end this episode with a comment, is that even if I manage to prove that everything that it's written in the Torah, it's totally true and it happened, and even if I find archaeological proofs that they say it and the Torah was totally true, I don't think that my Judaism will change so much. I probably will be more. I don't think that my Judaism would change. And also from the other side, if people prove that all this was invented by a bunch of guys that decided to write a very particular text, I don't think Judaism changes anyway. We have developed a tradition that reads this text again and again, and that's what keeps Judaism alive. That in every generation we actually read and we comment it and we interpret the text again and again. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have this particular episode of the golden calf, right? Egel HaZahav, the golden calf, in Exodus 32. Yeah. So I would love to any one of you to read from this wonderful scene. Anyone? Should I read? I hear my
Wendy, you read. You're good.
Oh, all right. As soon as Moses came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, he became enraged, and he hurled the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. He took the calf that they had made and burned it. He ground it to powder and strewed it upon the water, and so made the Israelites drink it. The next day Moses said to the people, "You have been guilty of a great sin, and yet now I will now go up to thee. Lord, perhaps I may win forgiveness for your sin." Moses went back to the Lord and said, "Alas, this people is guilty of a great sin in making for themselves a god of gold."
But if not, right.
Raised it in the record which we have written.
So this is a very hard part of the Torah. Moses challenged God and says, "If you will not forgive the people of Israel, just erase me from the record which you have written. So this Torah that you are giving us, I don't want to be a part of it if you want to forgive the people of Israel." And the episode of the golden calf, it's also related to Matan Torah, since actually we start understanding that Moses, according to some of the views and according to some interpretation, he goes up actually at the 6th of Sivan, and as we saw before, He stays there for 40 days and 40 nights, and then he goes back and with the tablets. What he see people doing, making the golden calf, and he breaks the tablets, or some people say, some commentaries says that he actually they became very heavy and Moses couldn't handle anymore, and he just left them to fall to the ground, and they were broken. And the next day, we will see in a minute which was the exactly day, but just make your you can do the math from the 6th of Sivan, 40 days afterwards. What is the next day? Moses said to the people, you have been guilty of a great sin, blah, 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 blah. So Moses goes up again, as we will see here in chapter 34. And he stays, he stays again 40 days and 40 nights. Questions still here? Something I was...
Well, I have a question that relates to the fact that Moses says, if you don't forgive them, then erase me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Lord sends a plague, which I'm sure kills many people. So isn't that an example how the Lord did not forgive?
Did not forgive the people?
Yeah.
So
Moses, if he keeps his promise, he will erase himself from the record at this point.
Yeah, you're right. Just let me, it's verse 30. Right. So what happened?
I'll go up to the Lord, and perhaps I may win forgiveness for your sin.
So we see it's a very hard episode. Just a second.
I didn't understand the question.
What?
I wasn't sure what the question was.
So Sharon says that actually Moses says to God, if you don't forgive the people, just erase me from the book you're writing. And we see that immediately afterwards, we have this a punishment.
God sends a plague.
Yeah, sends a plague, and they start killing many people. So it means that actually God didn't forgive the people. But I will say that
God forgave the people, but most of the people, but the ones who participated, God did not forgive.
That's right. Anyway,
we still have Moshe, and we still have the rest of the Torah, and this many thousands of years later, we still have the Torah, and we still talk about Moshe. So Moshe was not erased.
That's right.
Which is an indication that there was forgiveness, even though maybe not everyone. Mm-hmm. Some people died, but most of the people lived.
Or maybe God forgave, but the politicians in power didn't, and they put down the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Or that.
I'm trying to see. Okay, so for those of you who have Etz Chaim, it's in page 536. I will read it anywhere in English. This is a classical way of we don't know how to deal with it. So it's in the footnote 35. Footnote 35. It's written. This verse regarding the plague that God sent to the people. This verse belongs after verse 20. So what we read here before, where it would indicate that the water ordeal caused the guilty ones to be stricken, the goal of a similar procedure to be followed in the case of a suspected adulteress, as we read in Parashat Naso. The calf worshippers thus would have been readily identifiable to the Levites. So it should, apparently it belongs to another place. But it's a very good question. Darush.
So that means that the Torah makes mistakes.
Sure.
But Torah,
Sure.
the Torah is there for a reason and
Yeah.
is deliberate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I totally think I started reading a very a Jewish philosopher called Erich Fromm, and he actually says that God also grows up during the Bible and also the people of Israel. And not only through the Bible, but through Jewish history. The way we served the Lord in ancient times is not the way that we do today. Today we're able to say, and I truly believe so, that also making tikkun olam and also serving other people and helping, etc., is also a way of serving to God. In ancient times, it was not to be considered. But we have some mistakes here that of course, apparently God also makes some changes, and he also how to say mitcharet, regrets about some things, as even we saw this in Noah and the ark.
I have another question as well.
Yes.
It's in the Hebrew and the English. It talks about thy book which thou hast written. I mean, you know,
yes.
What are we talking about here, please, Rav David?
So, what are the options? What do you think are the options that we have here?
Well, either he was writing the Torah and it got lost, and so other people wrote it instead, or it means
the imagery of the book and life.
The interpretation in my hurt talks about destinies.
Okay.
Ronan, the point of view or the theory that Moshe was writing down what God was telling him, and some of it had not happened yet, and that he's writing things that hadn't happened but were going to happen.
Right. That's right. Ronan, you were also saying you were saying something.
Yeah, there's imagery in Yom Kippur about the book of life and the book of death, but that comes later. That comes in Gemara times, right?
Right. That's actually what we pray in Musaf in Yamim Noraim, when we say V'chol ba'ei olam ta'avir lefanecha kivnei mano, that he goes through all of us and start judging us for good or for bad. It's a later vision. We have a couple of answers. So, Mechenina misifrecha asher katavta, erase me from the record from the book that
you have written.
You have written. It could be.
That means like until now.
Could be until now. Could be that also Moses actually copied everything from a book that God gave to him, or that God actually said everything to Moses and he wrote down everything. Trying to find another verse 32. One is reading here. No. Erase me from the record. This request seems to reflect a widespread ancient Near Eastern popular belief in the existence of heavenly books. Here, Moses' request is framed in the figurative language of the Book of Life. You're right. He's asking to die if Israel is not forgiven. So again, it could be that this Torah that you are writing, I have no interest in it if you won't forgive the people of Israel. And maybe if God didn't actually forgive we know that he did, but if he wasn't doing that, anyway, Sharon, according to your question, if it's not the Sefer Torah itself, but the Book of Life or whatever it is, so probably we still don't know if Moses appears there or not, and it could solve the question about what happened with this plague afterwards. And we have here what happens here. God actually teaches to Moshe ask for forgiveness from him. That's the 13 attributes from God. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Bechanun, as we pray a couple of times in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And it's very interesting, just a word about this, the Parashat HaShavua, because at this weekly portion that we will read in Shabbat, we have the sin or the big mistake of the Meraglim, from the spies that went through the land of Israel. And one of the problems is that Moses starts speaking with God, and he says, but what if you kill us all, what people will say? Why did you take us from Egypt, and etc., etc.? And God doesn't answer until he says the same formula that God taught him in Exodus, which is very interesting. So actually, why we say Adonai, Adonai, and we say the 13 attributes a couple of times during Yom Kippur, because we know that this formula worked through many times, and we can actually make sure that God forgives us through these attributes. And then we have, anyway, we can say that if God actually forgave the people of Israel or not, but the tablets were broken, and we need new ones. So this is what happens in Exodus 34. Someone wants to read?
I can read.
Great.
Okay. The Lord said to Moses, carve 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will inscribe upon the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you shattered. Be ready by morning, and in the morning come up to Mount Sinai and present yourself there to me on the top of the mountain. And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He ate no bread and drank no water. And he wrote down on the tablets the terms of the covenant, the 10 commandments. So Moses came down from Mount Sinai, and as Moses came down from the mountain bearing the 2 tablets of the pact, Moses was not aware that the skin of his face was radiant, since he had spoken with him.
So we have a couple of problems here. Sharon, not only that he was an 80-year-old man going up to Mount Sinai, he also didn't eat and drink for 40 days, which is very hard. Don't try this at home.
It did great things for his skin.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, the skin on his face was radiant. I mean, wow, I should try that.
Karan or Panav.
David, is this is the second time he's been with Elohim 40 days and 40 nights?
This is the third time, as we will see in a couple of minutes. This is the second time, I think.
The second time, that's already 80 days.
Yes. Yes.
It's a long time for the people to wait impatiently, if they're like Israelis.
Yes, but now they know how to count the days. So they did the mistake. They did a big mistake the first time. Hopefully, they won't do do it the second time. And that's the way it happened.
Clearly, they were in lockdown.
They were locked up, probably. So when I did a shiur about the bidud, the quarantine in Jewish sources, this was also one of the sources that I used, since it's written 40 yom quarantine. And one of the wonderful things that happens is that actually Moses goes out without being aware that the skin of his face was radiant. So I don't know if my skin was radiant after we went out from the Esger, but and I'm not even Moses, so I don't need to compare myself. So we have here a few more things that we didn't have the previous times. We have here the terms, the tablets, the terms of the covenant, and the 10 commandments. So here we start understanding that there are different things. Luchot Habrit, Divrei Habrit, Aseret Advarim. So we started understanding that it took a time, and Moses actually took 40 days and 40 nights in order to write again the tablets. And this is all what we know about the from Exodus from that point of view. We still don't have the exact dates, but thank God we have Sefer Dvarim, Deuteronomy, which is a later biblical text, as you probably know. That's the reason why here, in general, the text uses a different language that from other parts of the Torah, also according to biblical criticism. And one of the things that we see here a few differences between the stories that are related, are written in Sefer Dvarim, Deuteronomy. For instance, we have the very big difference between the Ten Commandments in Parashat Va'etchanan in Sefer Dvarim and the Ten Commandments written in Parashat Yitro in Exodus. So we have this little text here talking about when actually Sefer Dvarim, Deuteronomy is like a very big, how you say, neum,
It's this, speech.
speech, right? So a very long speech from Moses to the people of Israel before entering the land of Israel. And he starts, I'd say, telling again all the story of the 40 years almost in the Midbar. So he says, "Va'etpos bishnei luchot va'ashlichem." Thereupon I gripped the two tablets and flung them away with both of my hands, smashing them before your eyes. So we understand that actually he broke them. I threw myself down before the Lord, eating no bread and drinking no water 40 days and 40 nights as before, as the first time, because of the great wrong you have committed, doing what displeased the Lord and vexing him. So actually here, that's the last thing that we will see. Actually here, Rashi, our great commentator of the Torah, he sees the need of explaining the whole process of the dates and the process of going up, going down, 40 days with the exactly dates and numbers. So everything fits and everything becomes more clearly. So if you were confused during the shiur, here you will have the answer. Until here, you have questions before we start reading here? Anything? Should I?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Va'etnapal lifnei Adonai karishona 40 yom, and I fell down before the Lord as the first 40 days. So he says, as it is said before when we see chapter 32 in Exodus, and now I will go up to the Lord, perhaps I may atone for your sin. At the ascent, which was the second time I tarried there 40 days consecutively, thus terminating on the 29th of Av. So the second time that he goes up is on the
18th of Tammuz.
Right, that's right. So if we start making the count from the from Sivan, from the 6th of Sivan, we do 40 days, and then we will get to which date?
29th of Av.
No, before the no, the 17th of Tammuz. So 6 Sivan 6, and then we have 7. Yeah. The actual order is Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, and then we have Tishri. So Moses goes up the first time. Actually, all the people heard the 10 Commandments.
The first time?
What?
Not the first time.
The first time, yes. Actually, the second time it was more a more private celebration, but the first time, all the people, at least they hear the Ten Commandments, even though they didn't saw anything.
The first two commandments.
The first time, everyone heard them on.
The golden calf?
Yes, which is very weird. But what we are doing here is that we're hearing is that Moses goes up on the 6th of Sivan. Everyone hears the Ten Commandments. It takes 40 days to make the tablets, and when he goes down, he sees this terrible thing, and then he needs to do again the tablets. So,
okay, I'm confused now.
Okay.
Where did we read before that Moses read or told the people the 10 Commandments before he went to write them for the 40 days?
Oh, that's the interpretation of Rashi, because he's saying that if we understand, I'm sorry, I need to find. Give me a second. I will bring my book. Just a second.
Sorry, folks, I got confused there. Maybe Andrea, you can explain to me, or run in.
It looks like what they're saying is that he smashed the tablets on the 17th of Tammuz. Because he went back up to the 18th of Tammuz. That's what it looks like.
I thought he smashed the tablets before they heard the 10 Commandments.
So
now, afterwards, the 10 Commandments was, and then Moses went up after the 10 Commandments, after everybody heard the 10 Commandments.
So actually, Moses was 3 times at Mount Sinai. The first time was in order to get the first tablets, and also all the people were hearing the 10 Commandments. That was the first time, as is written in Exodus 24. So, sorry, yes, 24. After he breaks the tablets, he needs to ask for forgiveness, as we saw in chapter 32, right? Chapter 32 says at verse 30.
Okay.
I didn't put this? No, sorry.
We didn't read it, but I found it in Hertz.
The next day Moses said to the people, "You have been guilty of a great sin, yet I will now go up to the Lord. Perhaps I may win forgiveness for your sin." So that's when Moshe...
24.
Right? Wait a second.
And it says, and he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, all that the Lord hath spoken will we do and obey.
What? Again?
That's in 24.
Yes. Yes. You before.
Okay, but we didn't read it, but I found it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe it was I didn't put it.
No.
That's before Moses goes up the first time.
So Moses goes the first time.
The blows of the shofar and the thunder and the lightning and all that stuff.
So he goes so we actually here when we are seeing, I now remember, when it's written here in Sefer Dvarim, I threw myself down before the Lord, eating no bread and drinking no water 40 days. Rashi usually, when he writes an interpretation for a verse, it's because something is missing or he doesn't understand something. Otherwise, there's no sense to write a perush. So he says, actually asked the question, okay, he went for 40 days and 40 nights, but we know that this happened a couple of times. Where actually was it? So this is what he's going to say is, 40 יום, it's written in Hebrew here, שנאמר ועתה אעלה אל אדוני אולי אכפרה, כן? עלייה, באותה עלייה נתעכבה 40 יום. This is the second time that he goes up. So when he goes up, he's asking for forgiveness. That is the second time he goes up to Sinai. And consequently, this terminated on the 29th of Av. The second time he goes up, it's actually at the end of the Av month. And since he had ascended on the 18th of Tammuz, he goes up the 18th of Tammuz, and he goes down at the end of Av. So it's actually 40 days. And then he goes up a third time, as we saw here in Exodus chapter 34. The Lord says to Moses, carve 2 tablets of stone. So the first time Moses goes up, comes back with the tablets, he breaks them. The second time he goes up, but not for writing the tablets, but for asking forgiveness from God. Then he goes back again to the people, and then he's 40 days writing the new tablets. From when to when? From the first day of Elul, 40 days afterwards, which day it is? Yom Kippur. So why is called the Day of Atonement on Yom Kippur, or as we say in Spanish, the Day of the Pardon or the Forgiveness? Since we actually understood that God forgave the people of Israel only in Yom Kippur when Moses comes back with the new tablets. So this is, sorry. אולי זה לא היה הטקסט שרציתי להביא. I got confused here. So anyway, the count goes. Yeah, it's really קצת מוזר. רגע. Yeah. He's still, sorry, so I would read it from Rashi in Hebrew. From here, on the same day, in Av, he became reconciled with Israel and said to Moses, hew thee out 2 tablets. He stayed there another 40 days. This is the last time. This is the third time he goes to Mount Sinai. Consequently, this terminated on the Day of Atonement, the 10th of Tishrei. On the same day, the Holy One, Kadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be He, was gladly reconciled with Israel and said to Moses, I have forgiven according to thy word. Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha. On this account, it was appointed for pardon and forgiveness. And whence do we know that he was reconciled with them with complete goodwill? Because it is stated in respect to the 40 days of the last tablets, and I stayed in the mountain according to the first day, Kayamim Harishonim. What was the case with the first days? They were passed in God's goodwill, for they had not yet committed the sin of worshiping the golden calf. So, too, the last 40 days were in God's goodwill. You must now admit that the intervening 40 days were passed in God's anger. So, actually, the first 40 days were pretty good days because the people of Israel didn't make the golden calf yet, only at the end of them. In the 40 days of the second times, was again with God's anger. That's why Moses goes up a second time in order to pray and to ask from God for forgiveness. And the last 40 days were like the first 40 days with the peace, or with more shalva, we can say. So we actually see that according to this interpretation, Rashi brings this from many places in Sifrut Chazal, from the Talmud and also in the Midrash. He says that there's a certain seder, there's a certain order for the dates, And everything fits if we only suppose that the 6th of Sivan was the day for Matan Torah. So we need Rashi and other interpreters, and also in the Midrash, they need to say that this was the day, even though we don't have exactly an idea that Matan Torah was that day.
So the last 40 days, or the third time of 40 days, are not certain.
What?
You're saying there's 3 lots of 40 days.
Yes.
So the third lot of 40 days,
Yes.
where they're backing God's goodwill, are sort of just used for mathematical calculations?
Yes, in some way. But from other point of view, we can say that it's not only for a mathematical reason, but because the second time there was no work there. Moses wasn't writing again; he was only praying and asking for forgiveness. So he probably, and I see that I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Probably the second period of 40 days, he wasn't up at Mount Sinai, but rather he was praying to God. That's why the second time God says to him, now you can come up, ha'aleh elai ha'ara, you can come up to the mountain, and we will work again for the tablets. And I was looking for this, sorry. Sorry. And anyway, what we do celebrate on Shavuot according to the Torah, for those of you that have the Chumash Etz Chaim, I'm on page 932. It's Numbers chapter 28, verse 26. Uveyom habikurim, it says, on the day of the first fruits, your first of weeks, when you bring an offering of new grain to the Lord, you should observe a sacred occasion. But we still don't have this, the exact date of Shavuot. And one of the ways we can get to the exact day is because counting of the Omer. Since we start counting the Omer one day after the first day of Passover, we count 7 weeks, 49 days, and at the 50th day is actually Shavuot. That's another point of view. But according to the Torah, here we see, Uveyom habikurim, we don't have an exact date, as opposed to other festivals that are written in the same chapters. So this is a good example how Chazal, or how Jewish tradition, managed to create a brand new Chag and festival thanks to thanks to a lack of information in biblical text. So if we can also celebrate the festival of the Bikurim, and we can celebrate the 50 days after finishing the Omer, and also we can relate it to the giving of the Torah, it's a wonderful opportunity to make everything fit in. Questions? Was very confused.
Between Sivan, Shishi Sivan, up to Yom Kippur,
Yes.
You're saying there's 120 days?
No, we have even 122 days, I think.
Approximately.
Approximately, yes. You can make the you can do the math by your own
calculations. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing in my head. So it's so now, okay. So there's 3 lots of 4. Okay.
So
I get it.
Yeah, actually, if from the 6th of Sivan until Yud Zayin or 17th of Tammuz, we have 40 days. As we saw in the Torah, he says, מחר אני, so tomorrow I will, which is the 18th of Tammuz, he starts asking for forgiveness again, etc., and then at the end of the Av, he gets the this. It's not forgiveness yet, but he goes up again at the 1st of Elul. That's why also that's one of the reasons why some Sephardi they start praying Slichot at the beginning of Elul, like remembering how Moses went up to the mountain and asked for forgiveness 40 days before Yom Kippur.
Cool. Okay.
Yes, questions? I'll stop sharing the screen so I can see you, all of you.
I don't know about questions, but when I did ask you in Better Knesset, I asked you in Better Knesset, I said, something's not working for me with the days and the times and this. And you said, I'll tell you, it's very confusing. At least you've made it clearer. Much clearer.
I think what we need is a flow chart.
Right, that's right. So everything could have been in a more simple way if the people of Israel knew how to count 40 days. So the first time they wouldn't wait for Moses for a long period of time, and everything was perfect. But then we didn't have Yom Kippur, or maybe we didn't have Yom Kippur.
And your English is very good.
Thank you. I tried to do my best. Part of it, I actually forgot part of my English since I made Aliyah because I started speaking either Hebrew or Spanish. But so thank you for joining us.
Thank you
very much. Very interesting. Very interesting.
See you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I will stop the recording. So.